everyone, welcome back to another show. In tonight's video, we're going to be talking about the level of destruction caused by Hezbollah's missiles on Israel. The second thing, Division 7 prepares for a ground invasion in Israel following threats coming from the IDF Chief of Staff to give Hezbollah blows after blows up until they understand. More tanks being deployed to the borders. An Israeli member of the government, in particular the Minister of Education, threatening to annihilate Lebanon and that Lebanon will cease to exist, according to him. And finally, Sheikh Naim Qasim, the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah, declaring a new phase in the war. I'm going to start off with the attack. So Hezbollah had an attack that is the biggest since the 7th of October, following Israeli mass terror attacks in Lebanon in the past week. This came in the form of two types of missiles called Fadi 1 and Fadi 2. They attacked the Rafael bases, and they also attacked Ramat David and an area called Kiryat Bialik in the northeastern suburb of Haifa. Now, Hezbollah wanted to send Israel messages with these attacks. Firstly, this attack coming from Hezbollah, although of course it's unprecedented and it is indeed a painful blow for Israel, they did not go all out with this attack. Hezbollah are still showing, even with this increase in attacks, that they are not interested in an all-out war. Hezbollah declared ever since their entry into Al-Aqsa flood battle that they are a supporting front and their only aim is to stop the war in Gaza. There was an equation between Hezbollah and Israel that Israel constantly stretched further. Israel did not accept the fact that Hezbollah is dictating certain equations and moving the battle to Israel with their drone attacks and with their attacks on Israeli bases and Israeli IDF troops. The more Israel increased its attacks and depth in Lebanon, Hezbollah moved further into Israel and also increased the attacks. However, they constantly reiterate they are not interested in an all-out war. Israel, of course, is not accepting that. And the fact that they had these massive terror attacks in Lebanon indicate that they wanted to change this current equation. Israel wanted an equation where Hezbollah would stop regardless of what Israel does in Gaza, and they wanted to send a message that it's no longer acceptable from our perspective for you to attack any place in Israel, and we are indeed serious about returning our citizens to the north. Hezbollah told them, this will not bring your people to the north. The only thing that can bring your settlers to the north is stopping the war in Gaza. And if you increase the attacks against Lebanon, you will get more Israelis being evacuated, and we are seeing elements of that happening with the increased attacks and the increased geographical area that Hezbollah is targeting now in Israel. After these attacks, Israel started to threat even further. So we had the commander of Division 7 saying that they have preparations to invade Lebanon. Many tanks were seen in Israel. Many observers said many tanks are going up north. So far, Israel has two of its biggest divisions in Lebanon. More divisions are being introduced. And the IDF Chief of Staff also said that Hezbollah, if they do not learn the message, if they do not get the message, then we will force them to get the message, because we're very serious about returning our people to the north. And if they do not understand with this blow, we will give them bigger blows, and we haven't shown them what we have or all that we have so far. So again, an escalatory tone coming from Israel. It doesn't look like they will be decreasing their attacks, and Hezbollah are slowly understanding that. When it comes to the threats coming from Israel, it wasn't only from figures in the military or the security establishment. that are currently serving, because don't forget, this war is facing a lot of resistance internally within Israel from people who had senior figures in the military and security and intelligence establishments as well. We had recent criticism coming from the previous head of the Mossad, Tamir Prado. This man constantly criticized Netanyahu and saying that Israel will be led to oblivion, basically, if we continue down this path with how Benjamin Netanyahu is running the war. Israel also received a lot of criticism internally about its mismanagement and its lack of care about the Israelis who are in Gaza, but those who are still serving with Netanyahu and haven't resigned, and we've had many resignations, are going ahead with him and with his plan to expand the war in Lebanon, including people who showed in many cases their disapproval when it comes to Benjamin Netanyahu's plans, especially when it comes to a deal with Gaza. One of these ministers who also had these threats is the Minister of Education. You're talking about a very important position in the Israeli government. He's a person very close to Benjamin Netanyahu. His name is Yoav Kish. The Minister of Education said Lebanon will be annihilated. And when he was asked by the host in the show, it was on a TV show, he said, let me rephrase that, Lebanon will cease to exist. Lebanon will cease to exist, and there is no difference between Hezbollah and Lebanon so long as these attacks are being conducted from Lebanon on Israel, then all of Lebanon is responsible. You are talking about a blatant genocidal tone, genocidal intent, similar to the tone that we had from Israelis before they went on the genocide in Gaza. Don't forget, Yoav Gallant said these are human animals. We will return them to the Stone Age, other figures said. And many people in Israel, including in the army, said, kill every living thing in Gaza. Every man, woman, every child, every infant, and destroy the whole population. You're talking about a genocidal entity, and they are not hiding their genocidal intent. In previous cases, Israel sometimes used to at least hide the fact that it's looking to completely eliminate the whole Palestinian people or the whole Lebanese people. But now they're being very clear about it. They're being very blatant about it. And again, these things are not highlighted on mainstream media because they want to protect Israel's image even after all of their crimes that they committed both in Lebanon and in Gaza and in elsewhere in the region. Now, this leads us to Hezbollah. We had a statement coming today from Sheikh Naim Qasim, who is the Deputy Secretary General of Hezbollah. He had a funeral ceremony for the martyrs that Israel assassinated during the previous or recent attacks in Lebanon, and he clarified a few things. Firstly, one of the meanings of his speech is that the resistance is embedded in the people who are fighting Israel. It's in a nation, it's in families, it's with everyone. These people, you cannot defeat them by targeting a certain group of these people. If you target fathers, their children will follow suit, and those who are injured are reassuring their families that they are going to continue to fight Israel. And as Israel has shown previously with its genocide in Gaza, in Lebanon, they are also committing acts of genocide by not only attacking members of Hezbollah with their pager and walkie-talkie attacks, but they attacked families, they attacked houses, they attacked pharmacies, they attacked hospitals. And that was, from Hezbollah's perspective, a war crime that is an act of genocide. He continued that Israel will not achieve its objective in returning the people back to the north unless the war in Gaza stops. He also added, threats will not stop us, and we do not fear the most dangerous possibilities. We are prepared to confront all military possibilities. The supporting front in Lebanon will continue until the war in Gaza stops, and the residents of the north will not return. Rather, displacement will increase, support will expand, and Israel will increase their predicament. So go to Gaza and stop the war. One of the most important things that he mentioned in his speech was the fact that we entered a new phase now. This phase is the phase of an open account. Hezbollah, again, they're still not saying open war or the major war, an open account with Israel. They are indicating that we have gone back stronger, we have increased the range of our attacks in Israel, and we attacked very strategic locations when it comes to the Israeli military and the military industrial complex, with the attacks on the Rafael base, which is part or a major part of the Israeli military industrial complex, and the Ramat David base, which is the main Israeli Air Force base in North Israel. And for the first time, they included the suburbs of Haifa that are very densely populated in their attacks. What we're understanding from Hezbollah, and they're sending many messages in their attacks. Firstly, they escalate their day-to-day response when it comes to Gaza. The second thing, they are still not going for an all-out war. Their increase in the range and in the firepower and in the places, the strategic places that they're attacking, is only because Israel is escalating. These locations that Hezbollah targeted have all been included in Hezbollah's video that they published a couple of months back, monitoring strategic Israeli locations as a warning sign to Israel. That warning sign was, if you increase your attacks against Lebanon, we will increase our attacks against you in these strategic locations. Israel, with its typical arrogance, continued and escalated and started conducting acts of mass terror and mass barbarism in Lebanon. The death toll in the attack in Beirut a couple of days ago reached over 47, according to updated reports, and the death toll is only rising because there are more people under the rubble. And this was only from one attack on the southern suburb of Beirut. So from Hezbollah's perspective, they are sending a message to Israel that if you want to increase, we are increasing, we are open for all possibilities, and we are willing to sacrifice. These people are not intimidated. They had hundreds of threats in the past few months. This is something that not many people talk about. Hezbollah had people coming from Western countries, from Arab countries, close and far countries, to tell them, stop the war, otherwise you will be facing consequences. They faced that from day one. Stop the war, otherwise an all-out war is going on Lebanon. Stop fighting Israel, stop supporting Gaza, and otherwise you will receive consequences. Nothing deterred them, because again, the concept of resisting Israel is embedded when it comes to Hezbollah. You're talking about a movement that took the main role in liberating Lebanon from Israeli presence and Israeli occupation. Israel occupied most parts of southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah played the biggest role in taking them out, expelling them from Lebanon, and in liberating Lebanese land. So Lebanon's current sovereignty is to a very large extent thanks to Hezbollah's existence in Lebanon. And these people fought side by side with the Palestinians, and they always supported Gaza when there was an escalation. In 2006, we had simultaneous attacks from Israel coming on Lebanon and in Gaza, because the kidnapping of Gilad Shalit to Gaza and the kidnapping of two Israeli soldiers who were bodies at the time, who were dead, to Lebanon happened relatively in a close time. So both of them kidnapped people, and Israel started to conduct attacks in Lebanon and attacks in Gaza. And at the time, Israel was attacking both places. We also saw support coming from Lebanon on other occasions as well. But after the 7th of October, we have seen the biggest participation coming from Hezbollah and also from the other resistance fronts, showing that we are not leaving Gaza alone, and the thing that we are fighting for is to end the war in Gaza. We are not looking for something far bigger than that. Hezbollah haven't declared that they are looking for all of the Palestinian rights. They simply want Israel to stop the war. And again, the pressure is coming on them instead of coming on Israel to stop the war and its genocide in Gaza. No, stop the front, but clearly they're not stopping. They are creating a new equation with what they're calling now the open account, and they will not be deterred by Israel. Now, when it comes to Israel, Israel, of course, has been suffering greatly in the past 11 months. And from their perspective, they are faced with a new reality when it comes to Lebanon. Generally, when you spoke about Israel fighting other locations, other states, or other movements in certain states, you spoke about very short periods of a shock attack, mainly by the Air Force, probably by a limited ground invasion of special units and special forces, getting the job over and done with and going back to Israel, whilst the Israeli population is continuing their day-to-day life without any sort of problems. Everything is running smoothly. The economy, the tourism, everything is fine inside of Israel. That all flipped on the 7th of October with Hamas's surprise attack in the south that forced over 150,000 to be evacuated from their homes, and then from Lebanon forcing over 80,000 initially, that became over 100,000 later on, and now the numbers are rising with the increase. So Israel, although they contained this reality to an extent by slowly stretching it with Hezbollah, now with them adding the return of the Israelis to the north as part of their objectives, or one of their objectives of the war in general, means that they are going into further escalation. And this attack coming from Hezbollah, although it's significant, it's still very calculated and very balanced, and Hezbollah are fine with creating a new equation with more heavy exchanges coming between them and the Israelis. But Israel is not looking like it will be accepting this new equation, because from their perspective they only increased attacks to eliminate the previous one, meaning Israel will only increase its attacks further, and we will see more aggression coming from Israel to Lebanon. The final thing that I wanted to wrap up with, we had an attack coming from the Iraqi resistance with drones to the Jordan Valley and the northeastern part of Israel. This attack most likely came from the northwestern part of Iraq and from Syria, because usually anything that goes through Jordan is intercepted by the Jordanian forces, but all of these drones came from Syria, most likely to the Jordan Valley, hitting strategic locations in accordance to the Iraqi resistance and other parts as well. We had observations from Haifa, and we also had observations from other places of Israeli jets trying to intercept these drones, meaning the Iraqi resistance is still attacking Israel, and it's still a very significant part of the supporting fronts. We saw a period of slight decrease when it comes to the attacks coming from Iraq, but with this recent attack they're showing that they are still there. And with this attack coming one day after Hezbollah's attack yesterday, they are also sending a message to Israel: if you escalate with Lebanon, our front is here, regardless of how many forces you deploy to Lebanon, or how far you go in, or how hard your blows will be. We will still be attacking you from Iraq, and that equation will not change. You cannot change that equation unless you declare a war on Iraq, which is going to be a complete game changer, and it's not looking like Israel is preparing for such a thing, because with the significant attacks coming from Yemen, the only thing that Israel's done to Yemen is attack Al-Hudaydah. That's the most significant attack. Of course, we have the genocide coalition serving Israel there. But when it comes to Iraq, Israel did not have any declared operations in Iraq. We only had a very small number of attacks coming from the US forces against parts of the Iraqi resistance movements after they attacked American bases in Iraq. So the retaliation didn't come on behalf or for Israel. It was mostly due to the American bases attack, and now we're having more talks about American withdrawal. The Iraqi government is asking for a deadline for complete withdrawal of the remaining forces in Iraq. But Iraq is sending a message, the resistance from there, that we are in solidarity, we are still supporting, and you will not stop us even if you go on an all-out escalation with Lebanon. And these were the main things that I want to talk to you about in this video. As usual, I hope I shed some light and elaborated and gave you some beneficial information, and I will hopefully see you soon in the next video. Stay blessed. Peace.